Hi, I'm James Johnson, founder and CEO coach. Welcome to Peer Effect, the podcast where your peers will tell you what's unlocking their 10 million plus business. I truly believe that having the right people is the most important thing for a scaling founder to get right. But how to find them and how to afford them. My guest today, Roei Samuel, is the founder of Connected. They support experts become fractional and help founders find the right talent to scale their business. They're in the US and UK and growing fast. This is the episode for you if you want to learn about how to scale using network effects and the 1% people. So Roei, welcome to the show.
James, thanks so much for having me on. After a couple of false starts, we finally made it.
The miracles of remote recording. So when we were doing the research for this, we found out that your entrepreneurial journey started quite early. Even what were you doing at university that sort of kicked off your journey?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, as a teenager, as a child, even growing up, without much money. But my dad, was unfortunately not very successful on his entrepreneurial journey, and mum was a primary school teacher, so didn't grow up with a lot on that side. So I think you start having to try and figure out how to make money pretty early on. But when I was at university, I started running an events brand called Yella, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a really good time. And then started launching a podcast called Real Talk, which again was really, really fun. This is back in 2012, 2013, before podcasts were really a big thing. Yeah, it was great. We got to 40,000 subscribers on YouTube as well. We loved it. But I don't know if you remember, back then, people used to make jokes about how are you going to you're gonna feed your family and views? This was before YouTube monetization was really a thing. And we were we're actually not making any money here. So we started to do a few partnerships with a few Nike and Under Armour, affiliate sponsorship links, very basic stuff. And we saw there was a bit of money there. So we pivoted from Real Talk into Real Sport, and then realized that we were encountering a problem of creating media in the sports space, and that there were lots of other people who were having the same issue as well. So we started to develop a content creation toolkit to help sports fans and gaming fans create podcasts, create videos, giving them tools to optimize content for social media platforms, getting quite ahead of its time back in 2013. Within a month of launching, we had about 75,000 users. So I dropped out of university, which was a big risk at the time, paid off in the end. My parents weren't too sure about it, as you can imagine. And then we had a really exciting journey. We ended up scaling up to about 9 million monthly users over the next 4 years, ended up working with the Premier League, NBA, NFL, really, really fun journey. And then we were acquired by a big gaming company called defensibility in 2018. Really interesting experience going from small, scrappy startup in a basement under a Papa John's in Kilburn in North London onto the senior management team of a PLC at 26. Really, really amazing to have that experience. The CEO who acquired us at Gfinity, the CEO at the time, was a guy called Gary Cook. Gary had previously been the CEO of Manchester City Football Club, had been on the board of the UFC. He recently actually who oversaw the takeover of Birmingham City by the American consortium with Tom Brady. So it's amazing to learn from him for a year and a half. And during that time, I also started to do some fractional work as well, working with different startups as a board advisor, fractional CRO, fractional CMO, and just became obsessed with the idea that the future of work would be fractional. And that kicked off starting to build Connected.
Wow. That's quite a rapid journey. It feels. I love how a story which is sort of a 2-minute answer hides. I sort of imagine a lot of ups and downs and pain on that journey.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you know how it is, right? Every business owner knows that the retrospect with the highlights feels great. The lived reality and experience isn't always the case. So yeah, you know this. I used to have a good hairline. I swear I used to have a good hairline, genuinely. That's the price of doing the business ownership journey. Or at least for me anyway.
So you're now doing Connected. It feels like that has been a similarly rapid sort of growth experience for you. Is that fair?
We've been really fortunate, James, is the truth. So when I started working fractionally, I just saw the appeal for me. Right? I saw it was cool, this is great. More flexibility, being your own boss, just things that, I think resonate with a lot of people. But obviously since then, there have been significant societal, technological, and demographic shifts that have really ushered in and created the perfect conditions for fractional working to thrive. COVID initially, that big societal shift, right? Geographic sensitivity doesn't matter. I don't care where you are in the country or in another country, we can still work together. The commute is gone. I'm working remote. I've got more time than ever. So that really opens some doors. Big technological shift of Zoom as standard, to the point we were making before this call started. So again, this online collaboration becomes, easier than ever. Now an even bigger technological shift of AI and automation. And then you have this demographic shift, which is, individuals who are probably, 40 plus, who've done 20 years in the corporate, can't do another 20 years in the corporate, couldn't think of anything worse, want to spend more time with the kids, want to have more of that balance. And those things have coalesced to really, create those conditions. And we'd be very fortunate that we were at the right time, right place.
I always love it when people sort of say fortunate, like to see all those trends and to actually create something that people sort of actually creates a solution for that is actually very tricky. Because I imagine there must have been a lot of people. I mean, I was one of them, sort of switching to a fractional. I mean, I'm a founder coach. That is a form of fractional work, I suppose.
Okay.
And I didn't think to create, connect it, and go that sort of extra step and go, okay, well, this is what I'm doing personally, therefore this is a platform to enable everyone else to do it. What for you gave it that sort of extra kick that moved it from like just doing it for yourself to like enabling other people to do it as well?
Oh, dude, I'd be lying to you if I said I saw it to that perfectly. It's like, these trends, great, let's jump on that. I'd be lying if that was the case, right? Like, it worked for me. So I was like, it might work for others. And then those trends, happened regardless of connected or not. So I think now, in retrospect, these things are easy to see, but in the moment, it just feels like an energy is with you, right? And it's like, oh, you just the conversations you have, and oh, this person's also trying to go, oh, this person's also trying to go fractional, which, by the way, can just be confirmation bias and can also be the undoing of us, right? So, there is a lot of luck in it for sure involved. But yeah, I think there was just, good timing, good people around me as well, great advisors who, helped us really see what was going on. And then, yeah, I think the really interesting thing for me is as the job market has got rougher and tougher and a bit more opaque, there is a big opportunity to be on the side of individuals and candidates or talent, however you want to see it. I speak to a lot of candidates who are going through processes right now, really high quality, amazing experience, really, great people, and they feel like a number in a machine, a number in a process, in a very opaque jobs application process where they've applied and it's a black box. Or, there's a lot of the new AI solutions out there. It's a black box, right? It's hard for them to really feel where they are. So by trying to give people identity and give them tools and give them a bit more control, that's really what we want to do. Is we want to help people feel like they have more control over their future at a time where it's a little bit tough.
I think it's also part of just the wider trend of, even if it's like Deliveroo, you're just stripping out layers, aren't you? All of these things, what you're really doing, just saying there's a lot of cost sitting in businesses or systems because it's kind of like control, sort of. Actually, if you can strip out those layers, more than money can go to people that's doing the work. But then the challenge is like how you connect, I imagine. Like those layers are quite effective at allocation. So how do you connect people at the top of the pyramid, or the top of that sort of system, the bottom of the system, without those layers in between, which I imagine is what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and also I think it's where we focus on the market. We work with scale-ups. We don't really work with corporates. I think the door will open to corporates as things go and as fractional working becomes more status quo across the board. But right now we're really working with scale-ups, SMEs, people who are really focused on outcome rather than bureaucracy, or companies that are really focused on outcome rather than bureaucracy. And actually in the world of fractional, it's a little bit easier because when you're hiring full-time, you know how it is, you're hiring across so many different indices and so many different measurements. Whereas if I'm looking for an outcome or an output, it's a bit easier to make the jump in that way. So yeah, I think enterprise and big corporates aren't quite ready for this way of hiring because you're right, it doesn't really sit within their systems. But for early stage companies now, it's almost like stage one thought process is, can we automate it? If not, we'll go fractional. It's like hiring full-time is almost like the last resort now.
But I think what's really nice about this trend is that actually often people hire because they feel I need a head count. And actually they're not very prepared. They don't do the thinking, what do I actually need that head count for? Whereas if you're going to hire fractionally, you've got to say, okay, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. This is what success looks like. Let's go and find someone that can solve it, which is what you should do for permanent hiring as well. But people often don't have the time to do it. So it feels like you're almost setting yourself up for success more going fractionally as well.
Yeah, I think so. And anecdotally, that's what we hear from the business owners we work with is things move so quickly in 2026 that someone with a 3-month notice and a 3-month interview process, or even if it's more quicker than that, by the time they're in, the problems have evolved and shifted, to your point, which makes it harder. So yes, hiring for that outcome and being hyper-focused and being quicker in that process is benefiting people.
Okay, and we were going to chat today about the idea of like network being more important than product. And so I'm curious how that plays out, how you see that playing out.
It's my belief that with the increased proliferation of AI tooling, that unless you're building genuinely deep tech, like quantum or, biotech or genuinely generative AI, there is no moat around technology. And if there is now, it's going to be gone within a year. Like we're spinning up products now on a daily that took us the first year of Connected to build. It's moving at that pace, right? Maybe I'm being a little bit, but it's moving at that pace, right? And therefore, it's all about brand and network effects, I believe, to build moat around product. Because the moat around, a 10% optimization, 10% change, it's, a maneuver one way or other around product, it's not going to give you an edge, and it's not going to give you a defensibility now or in the future. It's all about that network effect and all about the brand.
So for people that, I think maybe really know what network effect means, but just people that don't, when you say network effect, what do you mean?
So network effects is when the usage of the product by one user improves the experience for all users. So it's like every single person that gets added improves the experience for everyone else. Either because they have, in our case, for example, increased the differentiation of supply and demand, or they're adding data into a system which improves the matches because we can see their success rate. So it's this really defendable product, because the more it grows, the harder it is to compete with because of the uniqueness of the data and because of the improvements that we have on that side. It can also be used as methods for scalability as well as defensibility. So for example, a network effect might be a user going on Connected and then shouting about their new role on LinkedIn. That's how network effects works in scalability. So there's lots of different ways, there's lots of different business models around it. There are lots of different mechanisms of network effects, but at the most simple level, it's when one user increases the experience for all other users.
And do you think that's something that all businesses can access? One type of network effect. Let's say like you sign up for DocuSign, you send people to sign a document. 10 people receive a document labeled DocuSign. I mean, that is a network effect in action, because your users are doing your marketing for you. Some products, it feels like that's a harder thing to do. But it sounds like because you're identifying these different types of network effect, do you think most businesses can access some form of network effect?
I think so. If they're good at turning customers into promoters, then yes. And I'd say that's probably the most accessible network effect for most businesses. If you can lay a network effect into the product itself, that's even more valuable. Like DocuSign example is fantastic. But if not, there's still definitely ways that you can turn users into promoters that will drive many-to-many interactions. For example, getting them to post on LinkedIn and testimonials. But yeah, if you can layer multiple mechanisms of network effects into your product, that's where you're going to have the most scalability, defensibility, and ultimately value.
So for you guys at NetConnected, what are sort of, let's say, imagine you're using more than one. What are sort of the network effects that you would use?
Yeah. So one of the biggest ones that we use is because we have a highly differentiated supply and demand, it's about getting access to the right person rather than convenience. If I want a pizza or a cab, it's going to be hyper local and it's going to be within 15 minutes. If I'm looking for a fractional CMO with a background in specific type of financial services who's worked with performance marketing campaigns before within a regulated environment, I don't care if they're in London, Manhattan, Dubai, it doesn't matter. So we have that cross-border network effect because of the dynamics of what people are seeking. We also have this amazing multi-use supply and demand nature as well, I guess, which is often within these marketplaces, if something is in use, it goes off market. Airbnb, if I hire out a apartment, it's off the market at that time. On average, our fractionals are looking for 3 roles at any one time. So you have that multi-use supply and demand. We also have a community within the platform as well. So you're driving that many-to-many interaction, not just one-to-one as well. And then you don't have that hyper-local cold start problem as a result of the cross-border network effect as well. So there's quite a few things to do. There's a few more which is in the secret sauce, but those are some that we're really happy with.
So actually what's quite nice is a lot of marketplaces, you have that supply and liquidity problem, essentially, whereas actually by the nature of what you're doing, you can imagine when you start, there's a slight liquidity problem of matching the two sides, but actually because of the every seller is almost a power seller, which is really nice.
Exactly. And what we saw when we launched in the US, for example, so we launched in the US in January 2024, is, as you said, initially you do have that liquidity problem, especially when you have this level of differentiation between the two sides. Because if I'm deep med tech and there's only fintech guys on here, like it's not a good experience. So there you have to go slow at the start. And actually what we did initially was we built SaaS enablement for the businesses first. We gave them some reporting dashboards early so that they could service themselves and get value themselves as we populated that side before we started onboarding fractionals. So that was something that we used to overcome that low liquidity at the start. But now when we launched initially in Miami, it's like, right, first person there is serviced immediately by the UK. And then Manhattan, so yeah, you did have that benefit. But a nice bit of practical advice then, to the value that you give your guys is, SaaS enabled networks are really nice to overcome that liquidity problem early on.
And when you say SaaS enabled network, like tools, what's as an example, what do you mean?
So how we did it with Connected specifically was we built dashboards that allowed startups and scale-ups to understand some of their performance. We did some benchmarking around that. And then that was sort of useful, for just visualizing their data. And then we then initially used that to help them tap into the right experts. So they were getting value in the dashboards and then, your marketing stats aren't great, here's your marketing expert. But even before we were able to layer the network on top, that's why we got SaaS enabled that way.
So it's like a dashboard, like a performance dashboard saying, here's your profit, slightly benchmarking it, or just looking at sort of
slight benchmarks, but I'll be honest, it wasn't great. It did a job to get people on there to sort of to overcome liquidity, but we were never going to be a paddle,
Yeah. I, with a friend, launched a bike marketplace for not stolen bikes. Nice. And we ran into the liquidity problem in a big way because we discovered that the only power sellers were bike thieves, which was a slight problem for our business model given we were explicitly excluding them. In the end, we had a choice to make, like, do we drop the non-stolen bit or do we stop?
Which one did you go for?
We stopped.
Okay.
But I do think marketplaces are great businesses. I mean, you look at sort of, for a whole range of reasons, like the profitability of them, scalability, once you get going, they are awesome businesses to run.
They are great when you can get them going. I mean, they're not without challenge, right? They're not without challenge. And still, when you go into a new territory, you've got 2 GTMs to achieve, you've got what to do. But there's a reason why people like network effect and why, if you look at the concentration of market cap in US tech stocks, they index heavily on those network effects.
Well, it's interesting. We looked at raising investments for around 2011, and we spoke to like a fund that specialized in marketplaces. And they're like, they just did not invest in early stage marketplaces because they said they had no way of predicting which ones would work. They could see once you hit a traction point, they knew they were going to be good. But before that point, they never invested in them because they'd just seen over the years it was just a complete, they couldn't predict it.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. It makes sense. It's a hard one to know.
So for people listening, like if there was like one thing they should be doing today, what would that be?
Is this as someone wanting to go fractional and someone wanting to go on that side, or?
Tell you what, let's go in 2 ways. Let's do like if they were going to go fractional, what should they do? But also like if they would do something around like network effects, what do you think they should do?
So I'll say if you want to go fractional first, because this is a question I get asked a lot. It's about fractional, to the point we made earlier, is about impact and quick impact. It's not like a full-time role. It's very outcome focused. It's very, very measurable in what it's seeking to do. And therefore, I think if you want to go fractional, you should really lean into where do you know you can deliver tangible results the quickest. It might not be the best thing you can do, it might not be the funnest thing that you can do, but if you know that that's where you can prove your ROI, lean into that. Do that as your first case study. Do that as your first building track record, and lean into that. Is part of what I'd suggest. In terms of what I'd suggest someone to do when if they wanted to build network effects. Good question. I think it's really difficult to build both sides of a marketplace simultaneously. I've seen it kill a lot of companies. I think going down the SaaS enabled route is a really nice one, and you don't even need to sell the SaaS. You can just do it free to build, one side, and then it's really not about scale until you've nailed cohort based metrics. Don't even worry about scaling. Start with a cohort of 150, 200 users. Look at how behaviors drive daily active users. Look at the cohort, and then I invested in a company called Laps back in 2021, invested in their pre-seed, and then based off a small cohort analysis, they ended up raising an 8 million, seed round led by Octopus, and then 30 by Greylock as a Series A. But based zero monetization, purely off cohort-driven, network effect metrics. So I'd say it's not about scale; it's about nailing product, being surgical with your measurement around usage and distribution, and then leveraging that into funding, because it's very difficult to do a non-funded network effects business as well. It's much harder to do a bootstrapped one. Although today, there's never a day that goes by we're not shocked by what like 3 people are achieving, in a basement somewhere.
But let's just quickly jump back then to the people going fractional, because I think a lot of people consider it, as you say, like for a whole range of reasons, whether it's kind of, like in my case, exiting and then having a family, or in other people's cases, like change of pace or move away from corporate. When they're trying to identify that use case, what would you suggest? So I'll give you my example. So I tend to work with founders that are they've got stuck on that scaling journey, and that's either causing like business issues because they can't scale, or it's causing personal issues because they're burning out because they're stuck. Essentially, they're stuck though. It's kind of like scaling a business is very different to starting one up, and you need to be different as a founder. You need to build a different management team, and those are two skill sets people often don't have. Like they tend to be bad managers, therefore it's hard to build a management team. And then letting go of control goes against everything you've learned in the startup phase of the journey, which is like just put your head down and kill yourself until you get to sort of some decent numbers because you're just trying to survive. So it's quite up to unlearn and relearn. That probably, in terms of, if you look back at my career, you could say, well, that's an obvious thing you focus on. Like that's where you trained, that's what you did. But I would still say it took me, I've been doing this for 5 years. I think it's probably 3 to 4 years to truly nail that, in terms of like, because you could, like, theoretically you can do those same skills can be applied to lots of different situations. So I can help with this, I can help with this, I can help with this. I then have a lot of data to narrow it down. If you're starting this and people think about doing it, how would you help them narrow it at the beginning without that data?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think being able to lean on an area where you have that tangible. So it's, in some areas it's harder than others. If you're going to say, look, I train salespeople to, increase conversion rate. Okay, very easy to measure. If you're like, I'm brand and I'm vision, it's harder. So you've got to do a translation in your own mind and your positioning to how this founder sitting across from me, who all they're thinking about is running out of runway, to your point, and literally killing themselves, their head down, like how put yourselves in their shoes, and like you've got to be able to drive that tangible impact. And so I think it's a messaging thing, I think it's a positioning thing, and I think giving value, in those early days, giving value, like what's the thing where you jump on a call with someone, it's a first meeting and you're going to teach them something, you're going to give them something for free, which is showing that you can have impact and have that value. And again, I think it takes a while to figure that out. What we've done with Connected is we've built a bit of a sandbox environment where those who are going through the transition element of the platform, they do some pro bono work, a couple hours a month with a company to hone that and start building that track record to understand it, because the first one is the hardest. Out of interest, James, what made it click for you? You said it took 3-4 years for it to get where you really wanted it. What was it that really clicked?
It's a great question. I think I started building more relationships with other founder coaches and advisors, and just having those conversations. Actually, then people start going, I found I was getting referred work that was quite similar. And so it's almost like people around me recognized what my specialty was before I did, if that makes sense. And then just having conversations with them going, it's really interesting that you've referred me this. Why is that? Obviously you're really good at this. I'm like, huh. It makes, you look at it, you go, looking backwards, you're going, I did sort of management turnaround for 6 years. Like I did it internationally, like I scaled a business, like I was never really I've done startups. I was never really like great at the start bit. But in terms of I was always a specialist generalist in terms of always very I was trying to be a manager, how to be cross-functional, which is quite unusual. And so just, you look back and go, of course why wouldn't people refer to stuff? Because you're in it yourself. It's quite hard to see sometimes. So I suppose just talking to other people, having an external perspective, which ironically is what coaching is all about anyway, but you can't coach yourself. I think that's probably what gave it, like as I surround myself with more people who were talking to similar people, they were going, they could see the pattern maybe better than I could.
Do you know what? It's a really, really, it's a really interesting observation. So I think obviously the power of that community is key, but also, it reminds me when you're in the very early stage of founding things, it's getting out there and talking to people and shaping that value prop with them and seeing what lands and seeing what doesn't. So I think that's it. It's the longer you stay as the mad professor, iterating the slide deck in the laptop, you're not getting that real life feedback, right? And I think that's a really good point for everyone. It's like, go out there, give the pitch, and see what the market's saying.
I mean, I had a guest on the podcast about 3 years ago who's talking about being in the bunker. Like, it's safe in the bunker, it's safe building stuff, but ultimately no one's going to see it, so it doesn't iterate. You don't get the feedback. And I think, even if there's not like a big network effect, even just getting out, talking to people, is a network effect that everyone can benefit from. Because I'm not sure how you see it with people that you support, but a lot of people's first that I know, same for me, a lot of my initial clients' work came from my existing network, or people who are one step removed from my existing network, because you've got that social proof and that trust, and they know what you've done.
100%, and that's it. Your first port of call should be things coming into me from people that I know. Absolutely that. And there are nice ways of extending beyond that if you don't have it, but if you do, of course, that's always going to be number one, and it's the quickest way to make things happen.
So what's next for you guys before we jump with this? It feels like you're in the UK. I know you're just launching in the US. Like, what's the big plan that you can share?
So why do we do what we do at Connected? The real reason why we do it is because I believe there are a lot of people who are living out of alignment, with themselves. And I really believe that living out of alignment is the root cause of a lot of pain and a lot of problems in most people's lives, and not just for themselves, families. It's when the dad comes home angry from work, and the impact on the kids, and then they shout at the bus driver, the road rage. Like, I really believe all of these things have a big impact, and I think they come from when people are living out of alignment. And as we know, in corporates, you have to be quite inauthentic to survive and to thrive. Not for everyone. Some people love it, and that's them, and that's great. But for a lot of people in those environments, they actually have to change who they are to fit in those places. And if we can help people have the tools to go and work for themselves, and therefore come closer to being their authentic selves, living in alignment, then we're doing a good thing. So our plan is, right now we've helped about 5,700 fractionals. We want to help 30,000 more over the next 3 years. That's our big drive. We're like 60% UK, 40% US. The US has really exploded. People seem to really love it there, which is great. But yeah, we want to go and help 30,000 people break free from corporate over the next 3 years.
And what's the impact on the founder side then, in terms of businesses you're helping? Because it feels like this is done right, this gives people access to talent that they otherwise wouldn't have in a cost efficient way, and stops that kind of unnecessary spend or like overcommitment to something that you can't overcommit to. So do you have any like data on how this impacts the scalability journey? Because instinctively it feels like this should smooth it.
Yeah. So what we found so far is that for every startup or scale up who joins the platform, they end up taking 3.7 fractionals each. So it's clearly working for them. We're going to do a better job this year of capturing outcomes and how those evolve a bit more. But we see that there's certainly demand for it from the businesses on the platform. And then, as you said, it's about getting access to talent that you would never be in a conversation with for a full-time role.
Yeah.
We placed a lady last week. Yeah, it must be last week, Monday. Last week, who was the head of products at the Estee Lauder company, who's now working with this amazing female founder who's just launched their first cosmetic product, but doesn't really know how to get it to the next level. So things that would just never happen in FTE world, we believe that we can really facilitate nicely here in the world of fractional.
That's really interesting. It's 3.7. I mean, that's even higher than I would have thought about. I can see why people would do it.
Yeah.
But
if you're a scaling team, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe we'll finish with this then. So we've talked about it from the fractional side. This is why you should do it. As a founder, because obviously most of the audience are founders and they're scaling and they're trying to get past like 10 million plus during this journey. What's the one thing they should be doing around this today in terms of fractional support?
So again, I think it's thinking about hiring. It's pretty bad analogy, a hitman or a hit person, right? It's someone to come in and solve a problem who's a professional at doing so. This isn't your solution to your company culture, for example. It's not your solution to a lot of things, but when it comes to hyper focus on issues that you don't have the domain expertise, the strategic judgment that comes from experience, that type of value, that's where you should be plugging in fractional. And we see, engagements which go from, 6 months of, 3 days a week, all the way down to I need you for half a day, to get your head around this problem. So I think it's just a case of, founders, the future will be automated when it comes to doing. I think founders need to get really good at doing that. So, okay, if I'm an early stage founder today, this is how I think about it. It's like, one, what am I really good at? I'm going to save my energy for that. What am I bad at? What can I automate of that? And then what's remaining is like, I should bring in fractional to help me do those things. And that's probably how I'd prioritize it.
It's really nice. When I was running a business, I would say like, you wouldn't have a new NED every year because you need to identify what your greatest strategic challenge is. And then you find someone for a year. Like, you don't have people for longer than that. But actually, this feels like taking it to the next level. Like, you're getting 3.7, then it's kind of like, let's be really good at identifying issues, and then we can find a solution to solve an issue with someone that can really nail it. Because I think founders are very good at solving problems.
Yeah.
But I think as a coach, often what you're doing is you're helping them get clarity. And then once you've got that clarity, it feels like you guys are a very good source of like, okay, I've got the clarity. I might be able to do it myself. I might be able to automate it. But if I can't, there is probably someone out there that can solve it for me.
And as to a point you made earlier, James, is when you're in the weeds, which you so are as a founder, it's hard to see it for yourself. It's the guidance, it's surrounding yourself with people who have been there and done it, who are seeing it from a later stage perspective as well. If you've come out of that scale up a corporate environment, you're speaking to someone at a startup, like they think about it more evolved than you, which is not better or worse, it's just different. And I think that difference of perspective helps.
Oh, Roei, this has been really, really useful. I can just see how founders, it's gonna, done right, it unlocks just that smoother, faster growth and just allows you to just execute better, which is the whole thing that I like to focus on.
Absolutely. And because of our commitment, we're 100% free for founders as well. We're not charging recruitment fees, we're not charging access to this talent because we want to help early stage founders. So we figured out a way to make that work.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Roei. And let's keep this chat going.
James, you're a legend. Thank you so much, mate.
Such a great episode today with Roei. I love the automate fractional hire sequence. as can see how done right can really accelerate your progress. We'll see you next Wednesday for another Founder episode, or Monday for the Peer Effect Postbag with Freddie. As ever, if any questions, just email us at hello@peer-effect.com or reach out on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening and happy scaling.